I went through a time in my 20s where I literally put everything on payments. I was living in an apartment with zero savings. Everything was financed. I was using credit cards up to my eyeballs. I was not able to pay them off eventually. Eventually, all the payments that I had on certain things got too much for my monthly income. And things went even to collections. Looking back on that time, you can think about it as horrible. I don't want to go through that again, but you can also think about it as a teaching moment. I mean, here I am now, years later, on YouTube with over 90,000 subscribers talking about that experience and talking about how since then, getting out of debt, overcoming that difficult time, I have been able to get to a point where I understand frugal living below my means. I'm much more comfortable. I don't ever want to go back to that. However, I want to think back to it because there may be many of you who are in a similar position, who are in debt. And I want to think about, what would I do if I were back in that position? What would I do differently? Now, again, don't feel bad if you're in that situation. These are times when you're going to learn lessons. You're going to gain wisdom out of it. You're going to move forward and appreciate things more and not want to get back into that position again. So in this video, I want to talk about 17 things that I would do if I were buried in debt again. I would do these things immediately. Number one is I would immediately go into no spend mode immediately. This is also a mode that I typically go in on my own life. If there's something that comes up, some emergency, something is something going to happen with somebody's job, this is a time where you go into no spend mode. And what do I mean by that? If you're not familiar with no spend challenges, it is a time where you literally don't spend on anything besides necessities. You're going to pay your rent, you're going to pay your mortgage, you're going to pay your car payment, you're going to pay off your credit card each month. You're going to pay for all of your utilities, your food. If your shoes fall apart and that's the only pair you have, you're going to go buy a new pair of shoes at a discount. Don't spend a lot, but you're not going to be going out for coffee, going out for dinner. You're not going to be buying extra things at the grocery store, no extra treats, no trips to places that are going to cost extra money. This is a time when you have to buckle down and go, oh, nope, there's the boat. I need to plug the holes. All the necessary things can stay in the boat. Everything else we are not going to spend. Many people use this as a no spend challenge, which is a great way to save money quickly. So in January, I like to talk about a no spend challenge. I actually talk about it in November so you can get prepared for it. So if you're interested in that video, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't forget about it or you don't miss it next month when I post it. Number two is I would change my circle of influence. The group of people that you hang out with often determines what you're going to do, what you're doing on a daily basis, the good or the bad habits that you do have. And at that time, I was hanging around people where we went and hung out all the time. This was before I was married, before I had a child, and just in my 20s doing whatever, going and buying new clothes, trying to impress people, that it really didn't matter. And that group of people, not to say they're bad by any means, and not to say I would toss them away, but I would start to limit my exposure to people who had habits that I was trying to get away from, essentially. I would probably step back and go, okay, I need to find some people that have more along the lines of what I want. And what I want right now is to be financially stable. If I'm in debt, I'm doing these things, and these things are resulting in me being further in debt. They're certainly not helping me get to where I need to. I need to examine my circle of influence and who I need to limit time with for now until I get things back stable and I can develop good habits on my own, and who I might need to branch out and talk about or talk with and discuss. And maybe they have some advice. Maybe they've been through it, or maybe they're doing really well financially and I always see them not spending money. I might want to hang out with those people and see what they're doing differently. Number three is I would get a side job that was not an MLM. Okay, if you don't know what an MLM is, just look it up, multi-level marketing. It's typically a business model where it's a tiered program where you go in and they sell something. Okay, you have to buy into it. So maybe one was jewelry. One was definitely jewelry. So you go in and you buy the collection of jewelry, and then you would host, I don't even know if they still have these now, you would host parties. You would find friends that would host a party. You would bring the collection of jewelry to the party, They would invite all of their friends. They would have food. It would be a hangout sesh. And I don't even know why I said sesh. Not like I'm cool, because I'm definitely not. But they would have a hangout session, and they would be able to peruse the jewelry. They would buy the jewelry, and then you would order it and you would get it back to them. That whole model is what I was doing. So you had to invest this money up front. And again, I did 2 different ones. When you invested the money up front, you got the collection of the items, because you needed the collection of the items. How else are you going to sell the stuff, right? So the company makes money that way. And then the other thing that they'll do is, and you sometimes don't even know this when you're first being introduced to it, is you will be told that you can recruit people below you. And this is where people can make a lot of money in it, right? Well, it's because they're recruiting people who are then having to buy the other stuff. And usually the people who have the most people underneath them, as far as they've recruited, and then they recruited 1 person, and that person recruited 2 people, and then those 2 people each recruited 2 more people, and all those people are selling, and the person at the top gets a portion of the money of them selling. You get where I'm going here. But I thought that that was a good idea, and then I would be able to get extra money to help with bills at that time, outside of my normal 8 to 5 job that I was working 40 hours a week at. Well, that was not the best idea. There are so many other side hustles that I could have done, even just gone and gotten a part-time job on the weekends or at night. Again, this is before I was married or had a child, but a different kind of a side hustle. And I'm going to do a video on side jobs that I think you could do. Most people, interesting ones, at least to look at as examples of ways to bring in extra income, because sometimes when you're in debt, that's what you need. Sometimes your income is just not doing it. So if you have, share with me down below. I want to know from you, because in that video I have a lot of ideas, but I want to share some real life examples. If you're comfortable, tell me in the comments down below what you have done for a side job. It could be working for a company, it could be, or wherever, some other business, or doing your own thing, or doing something on the side, or working seasonally. Let me know what the job was, if you enjoyed it, and if you're comfortable, leave what on average you were making a month. If it's a couple $100s a month, if it's $3,000 a month, extra stuff depending upon the season. Let me know in the comments down below. I want to share those in this video that I share on side hustles or side jobs outside of your 9 to 5, in hopes that it helps other people get ideas of ways they could pick up more income in times when they need it. Number 4 is I would stop any contribution to a retirement account at that moment for a short period of time while I was paying off debt. This is definitely something I would do. And I would directly use that money to then pay off debt. So if you are familiar with retirement accounts, usually the money comes out first before you're taxed on it. So you might have to wait for stop those investments, and then you would see how much extra would be in your paycheck. So let's say it's $200 a month, then that $200 would immediately be allocated to go towards paying off my debt. Now, you don't want to do this for a long period of time at all. This is a short stop, because investing is really the way to help build wealth, or more money in your retirement stockpile. That's what it's there for. Maybe not wealth is a good word, but in your retirement stockpile, so that when you can't work anymore, you're making money on the stuff you've stashed away in those investment accounts for years. So you don't want to stop that, because you also want to think about when you do grow older and you cannot work anymore, how you're going to take care of yourself. Temporarily cutting off those retirement contributions is what I would do. And again, this is all my opinion. Everything in here, take what works or what you are interested in, and do some more research on it. Don't ever take my word or somebody else's for it. Do your own research and come to your own common sense conclusion on any tip somebody gives for you, and understand that not all of these tips are made equal. They won't work well for every single one. Just take the ones that you think you're interested in and do a little bit more digging. Number 5 is I would negotiate my debts and not let the collectors intimidate me again. I remember during this time, the collectors calling me, that I literally turned off my phone ringer, and I did not turn my phone ringer back on until I think it was 6 years after my debt was paid off. And that was only because at that time I'd had my child, and I had to have my phone ringer on. I needed to know my phone ring. And that's the oddest thing you might think of, but I would just leave my phone on silent. If somebody called me and I didn't see it on the phone, I would just call them back. It wasn't important, and this was well before phones became so obsessive with people in their hands, so it wasn't a big deal. I didn't have my phone with me all the time. But literally the ringing of the phone gave me such anxiousness of a feeling because these people were horrible. So I would immediately, as I have courage now, much more in my 40s than I did in my 20s, I would call. I would say, this is what I can pay. This is the agreement we're going to come about. Even if it's not in collections, you're just calling, maybe it's medical debt. Call and see if you can negotiate and talk about payments. There might be something you can set up so that it doesn't go to collections, so that it doesn't go into default, but getting ahead of that. Make sure always to get that in writing. You want them to email you that this is what they're giving to you. Don't ever take it by just somebody's phone. Get it in writing. Make sure you have the payments that you make to any of these companies in writing. Don't ever give them access to accounts. You give them a check, or you send them a check through the bank. Again, do your research on all of that. But you want to be real careful in making sure when you're dealing with negotiating bills or negotiating payments or debt, for sure. Number 6 is I would stop looking to other people for validation. This is where a lot of my debt in my 20s came from. This is the time when I was most self-conscious. I would buy clothes. I would worry about what people thought of what I was driving. And the thing is, the truth is, people didn't care what I was driving. They didn't care where I lived. They didn't care what I wore. It was just all in my head. They were more concerned and thinking the same things about themselves. And now that I'm older, I realize this, and I'm able to say, it really doesn't matter. And being on YouTube even, I've gotten some really just nasty comments from people before about my looks, about my shiny face, about my clothes. It's very interesting. The internet can be a very mean place, and I've gotten better about comments here on YouTube and just kind of brushing it off and going, yeah, wonder what you actually look like in person. I could probably pick at what you look like as well, but yet you're behind, not showing your face on a keyboard, just being rude and mean to other people on the internet. But I didn't have that same thought in my 20s. But if I were back in debt, buried in debt again, I'm talking about what would I do? I would not give a crap, because that is one of the main reasons that led me into getting into debt in the first place, was worrying about what other people thought of me. Number 7 is I would sell everything that I could for cash. That is exactly what I did at the time. I had moved out of the apartment I couldn't afford. I sold all of the furniture I had. I sold jewelry that I had collected over years. Anything that was maybe gold or sterling silver that I could get a little bit of money for, I did. And now I look back and I go, oh, I wish I had that piece that I was gifted back this time. And it wasn't a lot, it was a few pieces, but every little dime I could get in order to get this off of my back. And that is the thing about debt, is people talk about how debt can help you get X, Y, and Z. They forget to tell you about the peace that you have, the serenity, the stress removed when you don't have debt. Now that's perhaps because they don't know what it's like, or they're trying to sell something, or they're trying to get you to go in debt because they're in debt as well. I don't really know, but there is a piece behind being debt-free. We became completely debt-free earlier last year when we paid off our home, and there was a whole journey here on YouTube with being frugal, being intentional, just nailing down and just beating at that mortgage and getting it out the door, and it was so satisfying. And there's just a piece that comes along with it when things and bumps and bruises come up in your life, which they do, let me tell you, they have. There's a piece of not having those payments. So again, getting back to what I would do, I would find, what do I have? What do I have around that I could sell? Maybe I'd have to jump back on Facebook at that time to sell something, or my neighborhood marketplace or whatever, and say, what's something I can sell so I can get some quick cash? What is it that I have that would be something somebody would buy, whether it's furniture, baby products, fitness equipment, the things that are definitely things people are looking for used. Number 8 is regarding social media. Now, social media wasn't nearly as bad as it is now, not in the remotest way. And I can't even think how many years ago that was. So this was like in the mid 2000s, I would say. Yeah, something like that when I was in debt. But I would immediately get off social media. Well, I've been off social media except for YouTube. There's always one person that goes, YouTube is social media. Yeah, if you look up YouTube, it's a video sharing and social media platform. I utilize YouTube to learn, to listen to podcasts, to become informed without bias in the media. I like YouTube for hearing other people's voices so that I can then come to my own conclusion and education. It's free. The other ones like Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, it gets you like the slot machines. Literally, the scrolling is designed after how they got people to be crazy about slot machines. It gives you 10 slides and maybe one of them is exciting and gets that dopamine rush. And then that makes you keep going because you want to find that next rush, even though 50 slides later, whatever it is, you're just seeing crap and it's useless. But then you get the one, the cute kitty dog video that's so fun. I'm going to find another one. It's the same thing when you've played a slot machine, if you've ever done that. Ooh, I won $2. Ooh, I bet I could win more. Ooh, $5. Oh, crap, now I've lost that $7 that I've won. It is the thing about social media is it does that. It's designed to literally waste your life. And I differentiate in my brain YouTube from social media. I don't use YouTube the way social media platforms are designed. I use it for those purposes I outlined earlier. I would get off of it because what it does is, we know how many ads are on these. They're selling ads. The whole point of those media companies is to keep you on the device. They want to keep you on the device because eyeballs on the device are money in their pocket because you are seeing ads they are being paid for. Of course, there are ads on YouTube. Completely understand. Definitely understand because I get views. I get AdSense from Google for people watching but again, I think there's two categories here. I think the secondary, the YouTube category reminds me of regular television. Does anybody remember back in the day when you used to watch television and there would be a 30-minute program, as they would call it, would be actually 20 minutes of actual TV and 10 minutes of ads. Same premise, if you ask me. But this one over here is designed to keep you on for longer and shows you way more ads. Plus, it shows you fully curated versions of other people's lives, showing them in the best light. People on there selling products, hand up, never had a sponsorship on this channel. Never tried to sell you a sponsorship on this channel. Anywho, people do it all the time. And hey, you have at it. I've definitely bought things because of people showing things that they've been sponsored to show. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them waste of money, some of them not. Anyway, my whole point is if you're trying to get out of debt, if I were trying to get out of debt again, I would get rid of social media, at least for the time being. And I will apologize for my rant on social media. Sorry about that. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let's get to the next one. Number 9 is I would sit down, put all of my information on the kitchen table, every credit card statement, every bank account, everything on the table, and I would add up all my debt. And then I would take the steps. So this is more the practical reason. I would take the steps to start paying it in what is called the snowball method, which is often popularized by the Dave Ramsey recommendations. So what are the two types of paying off debt? There's the avalanche version and the snowball version. Now, the avalanche version is you take the interest rate and you pay off the highest interest rate first. So if your credit card payment interest rate is 20%, your car payment is 10%, your mortgage is 2%, you pay your credit card, your car, your interest rate. Well, the snowball method, you start smallest to largest. The purpose behind that, and it's not interest rate, it's smallest balance. So avalanche is highest interest rate, snowball is smallest balance. The purpose of that is because we are human creatures who like wins. If you were trying to lose weight, and you are working really hard, and it was 2 months into it, and you had not lost 1 pound, do you think you would have gotten to 2 months into it, even if at 2 months into it, you immediately could get rid of 10 pounds? Probably wouldn't have gotten there if you didn't know that. The whole point is it's an immediate win that helps you. Yes, over time, with the avalanche method, most likely would save more money because of high interest, but a lot of times that ends up in failure. You want to do the plan that's going to get you to the goal, and oftentimes that is the snowball method. So that's the one that I would choose if I were in debt again. Number 10 is I would have a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets, but you could have a piece of notebook paper. I don't really care. Doesn't matter. It all works the same. Then it would list all of my debts, and every single month or anytime I made a payment, I would update it with the new balance. And when I started to feel down about being in debt, or the fact that I'm on a no-buy, nothing's fun is happening, I would look at that and I would see the progress that I've made. And I could then measure the amount of time and the progress that I've made and thought, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. It's the same thing, again, if you're losing weight, if you keep getting that 2 pounds and you've notated what weight, if I can talk today, you started at, and you could see over time, oh wow, I only lost a pound this week, but over the past 2 months, it's been 5 pounds. Wow, that is amazing. If you can look back at it and see the progress, that's a much bigger motivation. Number 11, I wanted to think back to things that I did in my 20s, and I would stop watching reality TV, trash bag reality TV, and giving a crap about celebrity anything. I can tell you, if in my 20s I would have been on Jeopardy and the category, and I never watched it, but saw clips here and there, but I ever was on the category of celebrity anything, I would know it. I would know it well before many other people did. I loved reality TV, just terrible, crappy reality TV. And I would spend hours. This was like, I guess equivalent to the time people spend on social media on uselessness. And I would know everything about all of these celebrities. And again, doing that, watching all these people, and I look back at it now, let's talk about, say, Real Housewives. Years and years ago when it first started. And if you see the stories, and randomly every once in a while I'll see stories about them, how they're in debt, houses foreclosed on, having to still being on reality TV because that's the money, how they were loaned clothes. And that's not what you were led to believe. You were led to believe you needed to look like this or have this. And it's not like I ever spent anything of that money, but it made me feel a certain way and less confident about myself. And first of all, it was a waste of time, which time is money. I could have been doing that part-time job at that time. And second of all, could have felt better about myself if I wasn't just inundated with this just nonsense. So if I were back at that time, I would make sure that I was not consuming that information, that content. Number 12 is I would never have initially moved out of my family home with my loving parents without having a savings net. I moved out and I don't think I had much of anything in a savings account. I knew nothing about money. My knowledge was so just nothing. And I would not have moved out without savings. I would understand, going back now, how important it is when you're making certain steps in life, how important savings is to you. Having emergency funds, having cash available, having that safety net there for when things come up. I would understand that going back into it. Number 13 is to realize, and I can now because I'm so much further, over a decade and a half more out from it, look back and realize that was a segment of time. That was just a time in my life. This too will go by. This will move on. This time in my life is short, and I can make it go by shorter or longer. I can make it longer if I want to keep sticking my head in the sand, or I can make it quicker if I do smarter things to get this debt paid off. And if you're sacrificing more, you're eating basically the cheapest food around because you're trying to save as much money as possible, you realize that this will go by quickly. And if you can look back at any part of your life when you were struggling and then you see it in retrospect, you can think, oh, okay, that wasn't as bad now that I look back at it as I thought it was at the time. Number 14 is I would stop using credit cards immediately. Don't add to your debt. When you are in this time of buried in debt, it is not helpful to continue to rely on that as a crutch. It does not help. You've got to build a buffer, an emergency fund, an amount of money that you can set aside to cut for when things come up so you don't have to rely on debt. That way you can get these things paid off and you don't have to rely back on that credit card. Number 15 is learning about money. I talked about how I knew nothing. I literally knew nothing. I didn't know about money saving or about how it works or about how interest rates on credit cards work or about how debt works or about how to decide and figure out how much debt is too much. Is this car payment? It looks like it can work within my budget, but am I even doing anything to see where I am financially? Learning about money, constantly reading, constantly consuming motivational content that helps me to save money. And in today's day and age, that's all over the place. YouTube definitely has that. You can find YouTubers that talk to you and teach you all about investing. People will message me here and there and say, how do you invest? What do you invest in? I would say you need to find a trusted source that can help you in non-risky investment information. A financial advisor who is trusted, who gives you non-risk. Now, this person who tells you to go invest in real estate goes and tells you to invest in Bitcoin or gold or silver, or you can make $750 a day. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Number 16 is probably the most important. Is I would start budgeting and tracking every penny. I did not even know what a budget meant until 2012. So even after I'd paid off my debt, I didn't even know what I was doing when I was paying off my debt was budgeting. Call me dumb if you'd like, but I had no idea. And these things have been made so much easier now. I absolutely love budgeting. When we helped a couple get their finances together, and they're so close, if you've been following me talking about this, they're so close to being fully debt-free besides their mortgage. It is on track with what we had originally discussed a year and a half ago. I am so excited for them, and I cannot wait to keep me updated on what's going on. But anyway, I love now budgeting. It is fantastic. I use the Every Dollar app from the Ramsey Solutions. You can use any budgeting app you would like. You can use a piece of paper. And yes, Ramsey, the Every Dollar app is free. You can use the free version. It's great. Google again or YouTube, learn about budgeting. What's a simple budget to go through? I don't like using percentages. I like spending the less percentage I can on every category. I don't like anybody telling me this needs to be this percentage or this needs to be that percentage. Now I understand when you're looking at housing, making sure it's below 30% or below is usually a good rule of thumb, because you don't want to be completely house broke, meaning you have no money to do anything because housing is taking it all. But I don't like to then divide up 5% here, 10% here, this, that. I use a certain percentage for my investment accounts, sure. But otherwise, that's not how I budget. I budget what am I realistically going to spend? And then you have to then track every penny. This helps you know if you're on budget. It helps you make next month's budget better, because the first 90 days of budgeting are going to suck. Because you're not going to know what to do and you're not going to have a good idea of what you're spending. But every single month, it gets better. Number 17 is I would reintroduce or learn, depending upon where I am in life, living below my means and being frugal. And all of the many ways to save money, which I've shared many on this channel, I will put some down below. There are little tips, little things that you can do every single day to save money, regardless if you're in debt or not. But this happens, I would do this so that this doesn't happen again, so that I'm not buried in debt again. So trust me, I learned my lesson. There are some people that go through its ups and downs. They'll get out of debt, go back in debt, out of debt, and back in debt. And I learned my lesson. It was painful. So I can guarantee you that I was reintroduced to my frugal living, to living below my means, to not spending more than I earned. And I would sit back and go, okay, if I was buried in debt again, clearly what I was doing wasn't working. I wasn't living below my means. I wasn't following my frugal living ideas and tips. I need to get back to that. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the thumbs up button. You can also hit the subscribe button down below. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.